Welcome to the show. We are so glad you're here. Now, listen, if you like thrillers and suspense and you like on the edge of scary, you're not going to want to miss this interview. Jaycie Mandrell has written the book Think Like the Killer. I mean, the title alone, that doesn't that hook you? That's why I'm in a nice dark room. We're just going to cozy up and talk to Jaycie tonight about this book. Jaycie, welcome to the show. I'm glad that you're here.
Hello, I'm glad to be here.
Jaycie, Think Like the Killer. I mean, that just gives me chills thinking about the title alone is like, oh my gosh, what is the book about?
The book's about this teenage boy who has these really morbid thoughts in a way, and he's convinced himself that he's destined to be a serial killer, but he's trying his best not to give in to those morbid thoughts, and he ends up preoccupying his mind with true crime throughout his what's the word? Throughout
No, I
his neighborhood.
so that's really interesting because you touch on the genre of true crime, and I mean, that is a big genre right now. A lot of people are into it, but this young man has put himself into the character of someone to try to solve a crime. Is that right?
Yeah. He tries to put himself in the mind of the killer of this girl he's trying to solve the murder of.
Hmm. Where did this come from?
Um, Me and my friends, we were talking about this one true crime case. I don't really remember which one it was, but I came up with the idea that we're having a good guy that was a psychopath. So I just wrote Harmon and I came up with the idea of him and ended up just writing a whole book about him.
Is there somebody in your life that is that character? Did you kind of is there an image of the person?
Not really. I don't think so.
Maybe a combination of people or just a complete
He
new
just
person?
he just spurred in my mind. I don't know where he came from.
You must have an imagination that's just out of this world. I mean, is this something that's just kind of it's almost art that you just finally had to put down on paper?
I've always had an overactive imagination. I've always come up with stories of everything that I've done, and I like to put myself in the place of movie characters and book characters and stuff. So it kind of jump starts my imagination most of the time. So it makes it easy to come up with new stories.
Interesting. So you're part of the story as you're writing it. Tell me more about the process of writing the book.
Um, at the beginning, I didn't really have anywhere that I wanted to go. I just kind of wrote the first chapter, and I wasn't sure if I was going to finish it or if it was just going to stay in my head. And then I started doing research on a bunch of crimes about kids and teenagers and some adults. And then I just came up with this crime in my head that I thought was interesting. And I ended up just putting it in the book. And I ended up just writing the whole thing without even.
So you didn't know where it was going to go from the beginning. You were on the journey during the writing process.
Yeah. I, I had the ending, or well, part of the ending planned out from the beginning. But other than that, I had no other plans. I just went with it.
I'm almost afraid to ask, but what is the process of investigating for a book and doing research on something like this?
It's a lot of details and a lot of articles. Like I read a lot of articles about Ted Bundy to get the idea of how Harmon would be, and I would have
Wow.
to look up different injuries and how to describe them, and just how to do details on crimes. It took a lot of research.
Was it troubling ever? Did you ever do it before bed and you're like, "Oh, now I can't sleep." I
I've
mean,
I've never had a problem with that kind of stuff, which is weird, but I've just never had a problem with looking at true crime stuff. So I guess it made it easier to write this story.
so you're obviously young. I mean, I'm guessing that you were in school at the time or you are in school. How do you balance everything? There's a lot of pressure. Are you in high school or
Yeah,
college or
I'm a junior in high school.
okay, how did you balance everything?
Um, I have a part-time job that gives me a lot of free time. We don't really have constant customers, so I'll just sit in the back room and type on my phone, come up with new ideas and scenes, and just write it in my Google Docs. And then at school, if I have free time, I'll write, and it just all mixes together.
Jaycie, did you learn anything about yourself when you were writing this?
I learned not.
Not really? Because when you talk about Ted Bundy, the hairs on my arm stood up. The reason being that character is so devious because he played on the kindness of other people. It's the sickest, cruelest kind of murderer. Is that what the main character is?
That's what he thinks he is, but he's not actually. He's actually a really sweet boy who just has a lot of stuff going on.
Wow. And you don't see this moving into a second book. This is just a standalone?
Yeah, it's just standalone. I don't know anywhere else I could go with it.
Okay. We don't want you to give away more.
All right.
Did your friends and family help contribute to this book? Did you ask for help or were you like, "No, no, no, I got this."
Yeah, I had my best friend, I would text her and be like, "Is this a good ending? Do you think people would be mad at me?" I'd ask her opinions on certain scenes and just stuff, see if I needed to add it in. And she would look over it, edit it, make it sound a little better. And then I'd look over it again, edit it again. And she helped me a lot.
That's great. I mean, because there have to be several times and situations, especially with something like this, where you could go in a whole bunch of different directions. I mean, he could do this, 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 and this. I mean, it's good to ask opinions,
Yeah,
have different thoughts
she's
on them.
my go-to with all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. When you describe your book, would you say it's mostly a thriller? Is it scary? Is it mystery? How would you describe it?
Yeah, it's more of a thriller mystery kind of story. There's not much horror in it unless you're not a big fan of gore, I guess.
I was just gonna say, so it's not real gory, it's not, you know.
It's got a few gory scenes in it, but it's not too bad.
What do you think or what have people said to you after they've read it? What have they felt or thought? Have there been surprises or are they like, "Whoa, there were some twists in there I wasn't expecting?"
Yeah, my friend from overseas, she was texting me all while I was sleeping and she was up reading the book. She was freaking out, texting me everything. And she told me that it was really good and that she really loved it, but she was really kind of upset with the ending. So,
Upset in a
and
good way.
yeah,
You know, you're making people go, "Okay, how do I get this book now?" You're I've gotta get this. We'll get to that in just a few seconds. I wanna ask your opinion because you are a young person and this is your first book. What advice would you give to someone who's thinking about, writing, especially someone in your generation, your age, who goes, "Yeah, JC, I've got these ideas too, and I've got a story in my head, but I don't know where to start."
uh, take it slow. Don't rush through it because I've done that before. And whenever you rush through things, it doesn't turn out that right. So just don't rush through it and figure it out before you get started. Figure out everything you want to happen and then get it out.
Did you kinda outline it first and do chapters or
I would write scenes that I definitely wanted to happen, and then I just put in the middle as I was writing what would happen in between those things, at least up to like each scene, I guess.
okay. And then share one mistake that you would say, "Don't do that."
Don't just once again don't rush.
Really? That sounds
It's really important not to rush your scenes. Just take everything slow.
let 'em marinate.
Yeah.
I like that. All right. Well, JC, you're with Writers Republic, and we have the information on the screen. For those listening on the radio, how can people get a hold of you?
Author jcmandrell.com or just anywhere really. Barnes and Nobles, Amazon, writersrepublic.com, all those places.
Awesome.